Hello, everyone. My name is Charles Neal, and I'm the president for NAMIC Atlanta, NAMIC standing for the National Association of Multi-Ethnicity and Communication. And I have the honor of having Sandy Nunez with us today. And Sandy is the vice president for talent management for the NFL Network. And she also was the president for NAMIC SoCal in her previous role within NAMIC. Sandy, how's it going?
Great. Thank you for asking me to join today.
Listen, I hear and know that you're no longer in the country. You're out doing great and wonderful things for the NFL. Where do they have you at right now?
I'm currently in London. We have 2 games scheduled, and it's part of our 5 international game package. So after this, we go to Mexico and Germany.
Mexico and Germany. I didn't know that we were expanding out there with the NFL.
Yep.
Look,
Yep.
I'm learning things on our coffee talk just as we speak, right?
I love it.
So let me ask you this, though. When you say talent management for the NFL Network, what exactly does that mean? What comprises your day?
So just quickly, for an overview, I oversee we have 75 talent. These are on-air people on our roster. And so I manage a lot of their day-to-day, there are always issues with talent. And so, with 75, you keep quite busy, but also I negotiate their contracts too. So, many will be up for renewal at any given time. In fact, during the off season is usually when I'm doing renewals, pretty much in the trenches for that. So, and even for the international games, anybody appearing on our international games, I negotiate those contracts. Here, for example, in London, I'm also on the set with the talent to make sure everything's running smoothly, operationally. But day to day, I'm not joking, it is crisis management or contract negotiations. That's about the size of it. So it means I could have a whole thing scheduled and it can blow up as, within 5 minutes and I'm derailed. But I think I've always liked it to be a little uncertain. So I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah, such and such doesn't want to come in today. No worries, it's Tuesday. we have contract negotiations that have to go on in a couple of weeks. Right. But now let me ask you this question. If we were interviewing your team with all of these crises that's always going on around, they have to look and say, well, Sandy is this type of person. She leads us in this way, and this is why we're successful. What are those adjectives in the middle?
They would say Sandy is a good listener, but she's also all business. I'm pretty straight. One of the things I like to, one of my trademark traits, I should say, is that I'm pretty transparent. I really like for people to know where they stand very directly. I don't like games. I don't like drama. I like them to know when they're performing well, when they're not performing well. And also just if they need support, I'm here. We have analysts who are former players and they often say to me, we like to be coached. So I'm really an extension of what they're used to on the field. And they'll say, I want to know when I've done well and I want to know when I've messed up. So I just really believe that it's important to be transparent because I would want to know. I would not want a manager who says something to my face and then turns around and says something, behind my back. So it's a lot of that straight talk, I guess you could say.
That's telling. You have all of these highly paid athletes and coaches who, probably come with a certain level of ego. And for them to sit back and say, you know what, this person right here in front of me, Sandy Nunez, is a professional. She knows what she's doing. I'm going to humble myself down and allow her to coach me because I want to get better at what I do, at my craft. And for them to look at you and have that level of trust, that says a lot. So I appreciate that answer.
It's been amazing. Now, I have 3-time Super Bowl winning champions, who have told me this. I want to know. I respect you and I want to know whatever you tell me. That's what I want to know about.
I know. I'm just making sure that my audience gets this too, because, I know why I asked you to be on this, on our Coffee Talk series, which brings me to a different question. I want to pivot to your past a little, right? You before you were on the NFL Network, you were with ESPN for about 12 or so years. And before that, you were with ABC News. And I want to touch on a few of these touch points because they're relevant for today. For example, when you're at ESPN and you were producing Sports Center, I know that you had a lot of touch points still within the NFL. And I wanted to get a gauge on when you start looking at issues that are going on around the league, such as coaching. What's your thoughts on where we are today and what we could be looking forward to in the future?
Well, there's no secret that the NFL in particular, I mean, I think all leagues really have struggled to stay as progressive, like break away from tradition. Honestly, whether it's MLB, NBA, NFL, some leagues more than others, right? But with I can speak to really the most accurately the NFL at this point, and it's no secret that we've struggled a little bit with having more head coaches, people of color become head coaches. And so it's something, though, that the NFL has addressed, they're aware of. And I think that we are seeing, I don't even think it would have been talked about years ago. It's at least being discussed now, and there's an understanding that we have to do better. When the majority of your players are men of color, you need to address that. So it's recognized, and I think that we're finally at a time where we're going to start seeing some progress.
Appreciate that. So now we have Hurricane Ian, if I have the name right,
Right.
bearing down on Florida, along with Queen Elizabeth having passed in her funeral. And you covered Hurricane Katrina in the past. You've covered President Nixon and President Reagan's funerals. How do you get your team and yourself prepared for these types of real world events that take place? What's from a professional side, how do you, produce?
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I think it's at when those big life events happen, I'm really grateful that I do have a background in news, because I just feel I'm a little extra in tune. The sports media industry can tend to bury itself in sports and not really look outside that world too much, but I have a different lens, I think. So oftentimes we will talk about make sure we will discuss with our teams, make sure you're not using certain language, make sure you're being sensitive to what is occurring. And depending on what the story is, we will actually put it in the, parts of it in the broadcast. In an attempt to show the rest of the world we're not tone deaf. We do see this happening. So we make sure that these topics are brought up in the show meetings. And we have to also think about, if you're a viewer at home and you happen to be living in these areas, how are you viewing our content? Are we being sensitive? Are we addressing things around those areas? I mean, whether it's the hurricane, for example, the Bucks had to move over to the Dolphins facility, I believe, or whether it's Queen Elizabeth. In that case, we're very careful right now, making sure that our Good Morning Football presentation, we're not doing anything that's disrespectful. I mean, these are always conversations you have to have. And so I think we do a pretty good job of it. I mean, we're not perfect, but I think we've done a good job.
So how does that sort of play out? I mean, when you sit down with your team, do you have a script? When I say a script, meaning a playbook that you guys already have in place from previous world events, or, are people
It's
just
really the
sporadically?
leadership. It's really the leadership. This is where having seasoned producers and coordinating producers are like executive producers. So this is where it really, really helps to have, or it's important, I should say, to have experienced coordinating producers, because those are the conversations, for example, I used to lead. If I hadn't experienced all that news coverage, maybe I wouldn't have led my teams as thoroughly and sensitively. But you don't have a script. You go into the meeting, you've watched the news that's unfolded before you get into your show meeting. You get into your show meeting, and it is at the top talking point, for discussion, and you say, all right, well, the Queen has passed. This is what we need to be careful of. This is what we need to do. And then you start talking about how am I treating the treatment, if you will, that in the show. And that's also a time when you collaborate. So you're taking in other people's POVs and ideas about how we should treat it. You want your team to invest in it. you never really want your team to feel like you're just dictating what you can and cannot do. So you really want a discussion about it. But as the leader, I'm also saying, all right, we're staying away from this. We are going to try this, and we'll try and incorporate your ideas as well.
I'm getting a sense of that 360 theme of being, seriously, look, you're comprehensive in your thought process and you're involving your team into those conversations, right?
Right.
You can, the unfortunate, situation is we could look at 99, you have 100% of something out there. We can get 99% of it right, but that 1%, depending on what it is, can blow up to be as, oh, they didn't get anything right. And you're like, we did everything right except for one thing. And so getting as much input in, is gold. One other question on the same thread. You also, and I don't want to dredge up bad memories, but you also covered the war in 2003. And so when you look at all of these, the good things and the bad things, we have war in Ukraine and Russia right now. How do you, a couple of questions. How do you, first of all, de-stress? Because I'm pretty sure that some of this has a takeaway with you. It becomes part of your narrative. It becomes part of you. So I'm gonna take a step back and let you talk to me about how do you get through these things? How, especially as, we're back in those, a similar scenario as we were in 2003, I guess, from a war perspective.
Right. That's a really great question. It's interesting when Ukraine started to unfold that situation. Gosh, so many things ran through my head. My thoughts were, oh, I know what the media, think I know how the media who are about to cover it feel. You don't really know what you're walking into. It's scary. You're leaving your families at home. You don't know if how you're going to come back. All of that is very scary, and it made me feel very empathetic to the people who had to cover it. Of course, I'm also thinking about the people who actually live there and the things you see. There are things you see that you can't unsee. They do stay with you. And, you know, uh, every time I also covered the second intifada in Israel, where there just was massive suicide bombing. In fact, you had the first female suicide bomber come up. And every time there's a ruckus in Israel, it flashes right back for me. And I think, wow, I remember how tentative that was. I guess it's just safe to say that it is cyclical. Those things kind of keep reoccurring. You do flash back. And at the end of the day, I think your perspective is completely different than it was before you went in. Those are life changing. As somebody who covers it, from the media perspective, those are life changing events. And I think that part of that too was when I came in to run Sports Center in Los Angeles. That's even a factor. Maybe I'm a little bit more extra sensitive than another coordinating producer just because of the things I've seen. I want to make sure we aren't going to err on the wrong side, because we're talking about people's lives. We just cover sports. That's about people's lives and their families and their homes. So you do have a different perspective. And you know what it is? It's just it's a very real perspective. It's not a bad one. You're just very real. Because you know that whatever situations we have here, pale in comparison to what people, let's say, in Ukraine are going through.
You said earlier you had a 3-time Super Bowl winner who had to sort of get a better understanding, and I'm pretty sure that in one of those meetings or just in some conversation, as you guys were collectively peeling back the layers, they understood, or they got a sense of the seriousness you are about your business, in part because of what you've been through. You can't fake that. You can't minimize that. And when they could see that and understand, hey, great, you got a ring, some money, notoriety, it was a touchdown or a series of touchdowns that led to a win, not life and death over here. And so I get it. So on a lighter note, we're a couple of weeks away from Diversity Week, where we have, NAMIC and the WIT Network, as well as the Walter Case Foundation, and all of the leaders from the various cable and communication media companies coming together, DE&I practitioners and leaders coming together to really celebrate us, to celebrate the leadership that's been given on the technical side, on the DEI side, et cetera. And, you know, you're a veteran at this, right? And so what does Diversity Week mean for you as it pertains to, you know, all of these great and wonderful leaders coming together and celebrating each other?
Oh my, it's a tremendous, it really is a tremendous week when they come together. It's a reunion of sorts of, you know, really amazing people and what I mean, great leaders. That's what I'm thinking. Great leaders, leadership. It's an opportunity for us to not just network more, but to really learn from each other. And one of the things I'm super excited about with regard to this Diversity Week is that for the first time, I'm seeing them really embrace sports, because at the end of the day, sports media is, you know, it's part of that media landscape. And you have more and more women going into sports. You have more women of color. You have more people of color. So I was very happy to hear that Jimmy Pitaro from ESPN, the president of ESPN, is going to chair. And as I think you are familiar, when I was president of NAMIC SoCal, I interviewed him because it was for that, trying to bring an influential leader into my world to understand, okay, you know, the workforce of color, this is what we're experiencing. This is what we expect from leadership, and this is how we would like to achieve more success. So, you know, when you ask me that, it's exactly that, trying to bring influential leaders to meet us where we are and say, hi, we're here, we're talented, look at us, and bring us on with you.
You said that, but I think you have to sort of change the paradigm a little now, because you are that influential leader that people are coming to hear from. And so I love the humility, but, you know, there's a paradigm shift in there where, you know, in some cases, you're no longer looking up, you're looking over. And so, I mean, that's okay, let's be clear. You were the Woman of Inspiration by Wise Los Angeles. You were amongst the 30 most influential Hispanics in sports. And you also won the Los Angeles Most Influential Latina Journalist. You know, and so you have a fair amount of accolades that are being thrown at you through your peers and other industry leaders to basically showcase and celebrate, you know, your wins as well. So let me ask you this question. With all of that history and everything that you described earlier, when it comes down to mentorship and sponsorship, how are you paying it forward again?
You know, that is I almost, we've talked about what my, you know, daily job is, but honestly, I find what you just asked me about to be my real job. You know, a while ago, it stopped being about me and my achievements. You know, because I felt really satisfied that I'd experienced a lot, that I had done a lot, and I was so grateful for that. Really, you know, my parents were immigrants. They did not go to college, so to have achieved the level of success that I did, I was really grateful for that. But it reached a point where I just realized, I'm like, this is not about me anymore. It's really got to be about the folks that are coming behind me. So that is why I was the president of NAMIC in Southern California for so long, because it's a lot of work, but it's really important. Liberation work is the most important work I think we'll ever do in my life. And, you know, I just feel such a responsibility because when I was coming up, there was nobody, and I mean nobody, you know, a Latin girl trying to break into network news. I mean, at a time when there was such nepotism, it was ridiculous. And I didn't know anybody in these fields. So I don't want anybody else to have to go through that. Not only do I want to be available, but I also want to have all kinds of information to give you all the shortcuts so you're not wasting a lot of time. So to me, it's incredibly important. And I try to, you know, I'm always overextending myself, but it's worth it, because when somebody comes back and tells you, hey, I just got this great job, or I'm on track to achieve this level of success, honestly, nothing feels better. I love it.
I would dare say that I'm gonna say I, so that you don't hit me, have been doing this long enough that you can start to see the fruits of your labor, where now individuals who you may have mentored and or sponsored in the past are getting into roles that they probably may have achieved, but it would have taken them a lot longer, or may never have achieved because of, the nepotism, et cetera, that's been put in place. So let me ask you, do you feel as if, um, being a woman of color, you have to work harder to have the same level of success as your peers?
Without a doubt. That has been the case since I started, and it remains the case. Even though I've achieved a good amount of success, I feel like I have to always be extra buttoned up. I have to always have extra information, be extra prepared. And I don't know that, if my colleagues were listening to me, I don't know that they would um, agree. But honestly, from my perspective and where I've always felt that I've had to present better and try harder. And I just think that that is something that people of color have to do, because what happens is when you don't prepare and you aren't as buttoned up and you don't present perfectly, that's certainly remembered. And, we just have to avoid that as much as possible. But without a doubt, have always had to do harder, try harder, I should say.
Yeah. So it is Hispanic Heritage Month. And, I am hopeful that we'll have individuals looking, and I don't care, from a racial standpoint, if it's Hispanic, et cetera, but these individuals should be looking at you as a role model.
Mhm.
When you look back over time and you say, as I've gotten here, I know you said that there weren't a lot of influences for you to directly call upon, but indirectly, who were some of the role models that you had that inspired you?
You know, um, when people ask me that question, a lot of times I struggle because I think, well, was there one person? But the truth of the matter is, there were many. And what it was is it was really, I've always been a bit of a sponge. So I follow a lot of successful people. And what I mean by that is any person of color that achieved success that was operating in the lane that I wanted to. So entertainment, or media. I would listen to everything they said. For example, I would sign up to listen to webinars that, Shonda Rhimes, for example, just gave one with Chief. Done, check. Michelle Obama, another one, check. Eva Longoria. So anybody, this is Chief is a women's executive league. So
Oh,
these are
yeah.
women, but I mean, for NAMIC as well, like anybody who I feel has hit, a high level of success, I want to hear what they have to say because I need to learn from them. So I pretty much, am an open book that way. I'll take information from anybody. Anything that will just help open my mind, help me get to a place that I haven't thought of yet. And leadership is, I think at the end of the day, I will follow anybody or listen to anybody who I feel is a great leader. That to me is critical. So it's not only just in the lanes I operate, but if I feel they've been a great leader, I want to know more about them. How do you do it? What's your secret? I want to know everything about that.
Sandy, as we're about to wrap up, I need for those who are going to listen to understand that when we were in the room in Miami, I don't even know how many years ago, and I had the opportunity to just you're absorbing what people are saying.
Right.
I knew immediately I was in a room with somebody who got it. Not when I say got it, I'm talking about various aspects of got it. Good leader, good listener, good participant, etc. But you know, I've been trying to get you on this platform for I don't even know how long right now, and you know, it, it's a conversation like this that if people listen carefully enough, they're going to get a lot of nuggets of wisdom out of it. Because as we talk about your past and not just what you did, but how you did it, how it put an imprint on you as an individual. And they take that and they apply it to themselves. They'll learn a lot about where they are, where they came from, and how they should proceed moving forward if they're not going in the right direction, meaning if they're not understanding it's bigger than us, we have an obligation to give back, etc. So,
Right.
Sandy, I thank you immensely. I am so happy that we finally had an opportunity to get together. It took you leaving the United States and going to England for us to finally sit down and have this
Is that
conversation.
nuts or what?
And so Oh, wait a minute. And congratulations, National Board, for NAMIC. You know,
Yes, super
do
excited.
great and wonderful. Let me ask you this, you know, you already gave the answer. I was going to ask you what gives you that willpower that continually has you moving, but you said the answer already,
But
you
I mean,
know.
in a nutshell, though, the work is never done. I
Work
mean,
is never
it's
done.
just never done. We have so much work to do. We have more territory to claim, if you will, in the corporate spaces. And like, I just, I love to be a bit of a hellraiser on that end. Can you say that on this?
I guess that's what I was, a kindred spirit when I was looking at you and hearing what you were like, yeah, we don't put us in the room together for too long.
Right, right.
Sandy, I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on with us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. What a great discussion. I'm
Yeah.
honored. Thank you.